Welcome back to the Talk Your Game podcast. We are done with the divisional round now. We are
Yeah.
all complete and ready to go. Great weekend of football. I mean, I just love football, man. I fucking love football. Um, we had a little bit of everything, right? We had some blowouts, we had some close games, we had some kickers determining a lot of things. Some random scenarios that came out of nowhere that we don't normally see. So, great football all around. Exactly what we kind of thought the playoffs were going to be like.
Mhm.
A lot better than last weekend's, I should say. Where there's just kind of blowouts left and right. But yeah, we just wrapped up with the Chiefs and Bills. We'll talk about that last, actually, deservedly so. But we'll just go in order. Honestly, we'll just go as they were played. Just talk about our main points here, and it's playoff time, man. We don't got to talk about bullshit. We'll talk about the real things here.
Yeah.
So, first game, Texans heading over to a well-rested Baltimore Ravens team in a game that was somewhat close at half, but, Ravens pulled away. 34-10, Ravens. Honestly, what do I take out of this game? The Harbaughs as a family are living on a high right now more than anyone else. Love the fact that it's a family environment. I mean, we all knew this. This is John Harbaugh's kind of mantra, anyways. But I mean, I think we were just treated to a wake. I don't even wake up call. It's just it's a shout out to the rest of the league. Like the Ravens put their stamp on a very very hot Houston team, and kind of put them away pretty handily with nothing flashy. It's not like Lamar was throwing 60-yard bombs. They were just literally running the shit out of the ball, winning this game. Lamar, did Lamar things, had 4 total touchdowns. Once again, looking like an MVP candidate if he hasn't locked that up already. On the flip side for me, just I think this is where the Houston youth and inexperience came through finally. They finally met an opponent that is as seasoned as the Ravens are defensively, finally, causing some troubles. CJ having no touchdowns at all, doing as much as he can, but we only get 38 rushing yards out of your team. You become one dimensional.
Yeah.
It's not going to work. Yeah, I mean, all I can really say here is 229 yards by the Ravens. This is who they are.
Yeah.
This is the Harbaugh method, right? Run the fuck out of the ball, play amazing defense. It's working for both brothers.
Yeah. I would say more so it's the Ravens method. For however long we've known the Ravens and their success, they've always just ran the ball strong and really well. And that's playoff football. When you have a run game like that in the playoffs, it's your greatest strength, whether it's your running backs getting those yards or even Lamar being the leading rusher with 100 yards in the game, right? um, I'll just wrap up with the Ravens because it's easier just to kind of wrap up. This is like you said, this is what we had expected. I think I texted out, they went in, took care of business. They didn't play with their food. Halftime was interesting because it was close. And I think I remember the broadcast going, well, this has happened to the Ravens before where they've had close games and they kind of crapped the bed in the playoffs. But I'm glad that they came out and just took care of business, like I said. The cool thing was, I think Lamar even talked about that, where he said, coach didn't give any speech at halftime. I was the one that, kind of talked and, told the guys like, hey, let's do what we need to do. So that was kind of cool to see that Lamar stepped up, took in and is more vocal as the leader of the offense. So that was the Ravens. With the Texans. It was like the story of Stroud could have had a storybook ending, but unfortunately this is like end of book 1, right? Like first season, this is the end of book 1 for the story of Stroud. We knew he was going to struggle. It's that Ravens defense, and the two people that I'm going to always highlight, Patrick Queen and Roquan Smith, they were giving him trouble, like you said, in the run game, only getting 38 yards total. The Texans run the ball a lot, and they have success with the run here and there, especially with Singletary, and Singletary just couldn't break one of those runs off, and you could tell that it was hurting that Texans pass game. And Bobby Slowick versus Mike McDonald, man, that was the chess match. And then on the other side, obviously, you had Todd Monken versus D'Amico Ryan, so that was the chess match. But it just went to show you that The Ravens experience, coaching staff, player wise, they took care of business. I didn't think
Yeah.
anyone was really going to question the outcome of this game unless the Texans had won.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I mean, Baltimore's Baltimore. There's really not much to talk about. We'll probably have more to
Yeah.
talk about next week with them. Right now, they're exactly the team that we left them off as.
Yep.
For the Texans, though, bright side for this is just year one, right?
Yeah.
I think the biggest difference came in was slot receiver, right? Baltimore has Zay Flowers, right? An amazing pickup by them, has just been an absolute beast for them. Pretty much everywhere across the field. On the other side for Houston, losing Tank Dell probably showed a little bit more
Yeah.
of its true colors this week, as well as
Absolutely.
Nico Collins has done. And I think he's actually played himself into a contract
Mm-hmm.
realistically.
Yeah.
But not having Tank Dell, not having that option, having Dalton Schultz be hot and cold, was another issue. So the great part for Houston is your offensive core is young on some rookie contracts. So offensively, you guys honestly just have to pick up guys in the draft. You don't have to go out of your way to pick up someone. And then the focus has to honestly just be that defense, which came out of nowhere in the season or the playoffs. But yeah, bolster up that defense. And I mean, Houston's not going away anytime soon. I think they
No.
have a stranglehold in that division for a while. It's just how can they utilize this young core for the next 3 to 4 years in that window?
Yeah, when you have a young core like that, your salary cap situation looks great. Rookie contract at QB, rookie contract with a up and coming star receiver in Tank Dell, and then rookie contract with your edge rusher Will Anderson, right? Well, also
Mm-hmm.
you have anchors on defense that I don't think a lot of general fans know about and talk too much about. Derek Stingley and Jalen Petrie. Those two
Yep.
guys in the secondary, they're great anchors to build around. So Texans fans, like the bar is set a little too high now because of how far they made it into the playoffs for Stroud and D'Amico Ryans. But I mean, you have a lot to hang your hat on, and there's a lot of bright future in Houston for sure.
Yep. 100%. All right, so we'll move on to the second game of the Saturday slate, night game. 49ers playing the Packers in a game that it was fun to watch. Back and forth, back and forth. Obviously, 49ers coming off as the number one team in the NFC, having a bye week last week. Came out, honestly, very, very sluggish. Green Bay came out on top very quickly. Unfortunately, coming down to a 24-21 loss to the 49ers. In a game where Brock Purdy was pretty quiet up until that last kind of drive. And
Mm-hmm.
I know that's what everyone's going to talk about, but I really don't think that's the main talking point here for this game.
Ooh,
For me, honestly, I'd rather talk about the Packers more than 49ers.
okay.
Uh,
Yeah, I can see that. Is it the Jordan Love play or just in general about the Packers, like how they played in the game?
uh, well, okay. So, admittedly, I will say I didn't watch many Packers games this season. If I did, it's on Red Zone. I don't think I fully sat there and watched an entire Packers game all the way through. So going into playoffs, honestly, I didn't have much to go off of. So I assume myself and many fans like myself probably sat there and like, where did this team come from? Why are they so competitive? And honestly, that's Matt LaFleur and his philosophy with that team.
Mm-hmm.
Um, they're continuing their model at quarterback and drafting a QB always behind who are their main QBs, and that works for Jordan Love. And I think he did a lot of things right in this game. Fortunately, the thing he's going to be known for in this game is the one mistake that he made toward the end.
Yeah.
But keep in mind, as a first-year starter, just trying to do everything possible, just made a really stupid mistake at the end. Kind of rewatch that over and over, and just it's a situation where you have to learn just to throw the ball away. Right? You're still driving. You have the ball. There's time left. There's no reason to throw it across your body into 3 defenders. It was just it wasn't needed.
Yeah.
It was just him trying to be more than he needed to be in that situation. And that's kind of where we saw a lot of faults. But I think the positive for the Packers is, I mean, for once we're talking about your run game more than your passing game. Aaron Jones is going to be a staple there for a while. Definitely proved his worth. And honestly, that Packers defense, I mean, it's not easy to keep the 49ers at bay for as long as they did.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's like I said, I'd rather talk about the Packers. The only reason I don't want to talk about the 49ers is just a lackluster performance. That's really what it comes down to. Just simply lackluster. Oh,
Yeah.
sorry, thought I heard something.
There's no Niners fans behind you. Don't worry. There's no one going to creep up behind you.
Yeah,
Yeah. So okay, yeah, we can talk back Packers. Packers for me. Let's go with Love first because that's the main talking point for this game specifically was that Love interception,
yeah,
and you said it across the body, throwing into the field. It's a quarterback 101 type of thing you don't do. Like
yeah,
you're taught from high school never to do that, right? Which that's what kind of I was just kind of questioning myself when it happened. I was like, what are you fucking doing? Like just throw it away. Um, but it's year one of him as a starter. There's there were struggles. So you had said that you didn't watch that many Packers games throughout the season. I watched quite a few. There were struggles early on with the offense and Jordan Love getting things in rhythm. And then
yeah,
kudos to LaFleur to do a lot of different things as the offense progressed, using different receivers in different ways. Jaden Reed, Wicks, and Romeo Dobbs. Obviously, Aaron Jones came back healthy, so that helped out as well with play action. That offense is very, very highly play action importance. So when Aaron Jones comes back and moves the chains, that causes a lot of freedom for Love. So Love had the game slow down for him as the season
yeah,
went along, and so he got better as a quarterback. And then the raw arm talent just started to show as he progressed in the season. And I think that's when people started paying attention to the Packers more was Love's play, not just the Packers overall. Um,
yeah,
Really, to wrap it up, they have a good young core on offense. Let's not forget Luke Musgrave. He has a great rookie season as a tight end. They have young receivers, Jaden Reed, Wicks, Dobbs. They're on cheap deals as well. As of right now, Jordan Love is the only guy you're gonna have to worry about, and Aaron Jones. So really, the Packers their off season is going to be defensive focused. Get some guys in the secondary, get some pass rush guys, and you will have a good team, just as good in my opinion next year. Because their defense, like you said, they gave the Niners a run for their money. They obviously the week before gave the Cowboys a run for their money. So they have a good coach, they have a good scheme there defensively. They just need a few more guys to make some plays.
yeah. At the end of the day, this game is 2 plays away from being a completely different result, right? It's the missed field goal by Carlson and the interception by the 49ers. So
Well,
they were in it.
even on the Green Bay end defensively, they had two dropped interceptions. Darnell Savage almost had a pick six that dropped through his hands early in the game, and then there was an errant throw by Purdy that went by two defenders. I forgot when in the game, but again, just opportunities just slipped, and the Niners capitalized on their opportunities.
Yeah.
For the Niners, it's it's an interesting way they're winning games. They're winning, obviously. McCaffrey was again their best player in my opinion. They won. My biggest takeaway was they won without Debo, and that was the impressive part. That
Mm-hmm.
it didn't. It was the one of the few times I've seen the Niners win where they didn't have to rely on every single one of those guys. Debo, Ayuk, Kittle,
Yeah.
McCaffrey. They were like Purdy actually played a well game in the second half. So kudos to Purdy because some of those plays, if he didn't make them, the Niners probably wouldn't have been in that situation.
Yeah. Yeah. So unfortunately, things went the wrong way for the Packers, but 49ers advance. Um, quite honestly, the NFC uh, is definitely looking like the least or the lesser
So,
of the two divisions when it comes to competition.
so I wanted to
Um,
ask you. You mentioned that, and I had texted to it in the group chat, and I had said, "Man, AFC football is just completely different." I think
mm-hmm.
I've asked you this before, but you watch more AFC, obviously, as a Bengals fan. What is something that you see that's different? I'll tell you what I see that's different, and we might have the same. But what's something that you see that's the major difference between AFC and NFC football?
Defense,
Okay.
which is really odd because in a division where we tout every single, it sounds like it's almost every single quarterback in the AFC is talented, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's always been the main talking point. This is me speaking from an NFC or AFC North perspective, but it seems like it's kind of permeated throughout the AFC. It's uh, the defense has, I mean, it's just hard tackling, hard hitting. there's a little bit of a swag to them for whatever reason. I mean, we saw that especially with the Bills and Chiefs game. It almost feels like everyone in the AFC kind of hates each other. So you kind
Yeah.
of get like this hard hitting matchup every single time, compared to the NFC where just teams are. It almost feels like they're happy to be there, and I mean, to a certain degree, it almost feels like, at least for the 49ers, it's you kind of lucking your way into the NFC Championship game and maybe even the Super Bowl. But yeah, for me, it's just mentality, toughness, and defense is what I see out of the AFC that I don't see necessarily out of the NFC. And that's, I mean, that's really weird because we're talking about the 49ers, and I'll even throw the Cowboys in there too. But for some reason, later in the season, we're not seeing that same kind of crazy defensive performance that we saw throughout the entire season.
Yeah, that's actually kind of the same for me. Mine was intensity, both offensively and defensively, but then that carries over to defense as well. Um, you had said that there's not like the. I feel like when you play, no matter if it's the, you know, I don't know if it's the Bengals or the Browns or the Steelers or the Chiefs or the Dolphins, like those teams hit hard. Like
Yeah.
offensively, defensively, they hit really hard, and they play with this intensity in the trenches too. That I
Mm-hmm.
don't feel like I get that in the NFC games. I feel like the NFC is very uh, pretty football, if that if that's a way
Mm-hmm.
to describe it. It's supposed to
Yeah.
look sexy. It's supposed to look clean, and it's not gritty football compared to the
Yeah.
AFC.
Yeah, yeah, and I mean we'll talk about that grittiness later on when we get to
Yeah.
the Bills and Chiefs, but uh, very, very evident in this weekend's games between the two divisions. Not saying the NFC is boring to watch in any which we're about to talk about the excitement between the
Yeah.
Bucks and the Lions. So, I mean we'll move right into that. Lions once again hosting another home game. I talked about it last week with them having the most expensive tickets in the league, and I just love seeing that crowd, man. Detroit. I wish they had one more playoff game there because, uh, that's just a crazy environment. It's a shame, honestly, that Detroit hasn't hosted a Super Bowl. I know the Super Bowl has a lot of different rules behind who gets it, blah blah blah. But you can't tell me, if Detroit hosted a Super Bowl, it wouldn't be a fun one for teams to
Oh
play
yeah.
in.
Yeah.
Um,
It's a football town. It's a football city. Um, so yeah, I agree there. Mhm.
yeah. But anyways, Lions coming away 31-23 in a game that seemed like it was shut away very quickly in the fourth quarter. But we kind of saw the same things we see from the Bucks the entire season. There's no quit on this team, right?
Mhm.
If you want to sit there and say the Bucks are the epitome of what Baker Mayfield is, I think that's a good description, man. The team didn't go away. They were down 2 touchdowns late in the fourth quarter, and both offense and defense stepped up. Unfortunately, the game ended in a interception by Baker Mayfield. So,
Yeah.
uh, but it's the same stupid shit that we keep on talking about the Lions. It's like you can't, like they just can't put a team away. Because
Yeah.
honestly, when they went up by 2 touchdowns, we're like, all right, dude, good game, it's over. Honestly, I like walked away, and all of a sudden, I'm seeing text blow up. I'm like, oh shit, let me go back real quick. It's just I don't know why I don't know why they can't. I have not seen a game so far from the Lions where they put their foot down on the pedal and completely, wiped a team off the game. And does that make for fun football to watch? Of course, but I know as a Lions fan that probably just you're probably ripping your hair out saying like let's just end the game, man. Let me go drink my beer in peace. Let me go smoke my J in peace. Like I don't want to be freaking stressed the entire game. But overall for the Lions, great game. You kind of saw everything that they do well. Jared Goff once again had a good game, no interceptions, 2 touchdowns, distributing the ball pretty well across the board to everyone. Um, they played Detroit football. That's probably the best way to describe it. Ben Johnson once again, great game plan coming in this game. I
Mhm.
know sometimes when people watch him, it can sometimes look predictable or boring. But for as many Lions games as I watched this season, there's a method to the madness, right? Like
Mhm.
he ultimately, as a OC, loves setting up his team for a big play, right? And more likely than not, they've always hit that big play. So it's just one of those things where you kind of have to wait in anticipation for it to happen. In this game, they didn't necessarily have to do that. They had a pretty good game plan going into it. It's just I don't know why they haven't been able to figure out how to just completely end games.
Yeah, cardiac cats. I mean, it couldn't go like that term or saying couldn't go to a more better team, right? Like it fits the Lions
Yeah.
so well. Cardiac cats. Um, I I don't know why they can't close out games, and it came back down to defense. To be honest, because there were it was a 2 touchdown game. There was like I want to say like 6 or 7 minutes left, maybe
Mm-hmm.
before the Buccaneers scored to make it a 1 touchdown game. And so it's like a twofold kind of process where it's like, okay, hey, the offense gave us a 2 touchdown lead. Defense, you just got to hold them to a field goal, and our offense will get back on the board.
Yeah.
But the defense just couldn't hold up. And we've said it all season long, like they have to rely on a play from like Hutch or someone to make some crazy play because they're always like inches away from doing it, but the other team
Yeah.
always just gets a break. But also it flips to the other side. So for this example of this game, the Bucks ended up scoring a touchdown and making it a 1 score game, but then the Lions offense couldn't close out the game and just milk the rest of the clock down. So it's like
Yeah.
it's a weird thing that happens to the Lions in the second half where if they're playing from behind, they have this fight, but if they have like a somewhat of a lead or somewhat comfortability, they kind
Mm-hmm.
of just lose focus, which is
Yeah.
weird because Dan Campbell talks about focus and finishing the job and getting through all 60 minutes of the game. It's just kind of weird. And you can't have a game like that against the Niners, right? You got to be 100% focused every
Yeah.
single second of the game. So kind of an odd situation, but the Lions are winning games because that offense can put up numbers and it will give any defense a run for their money. So
Yeah.
kudos to Ben Johnson because the method to that madness, it works. It's a beautiful game that he plays, and I just love watching his play calls. On the Bucks, to wrap up, nobody expected the Bucks to be here, so kudos to them, man. I know it's a heartbreaking way to lose with Baker throwing the interception, but no fan. I don't even know what Buccaneers fan was out there saying, yeah, we'll make a playoff run. You were probably just happy to have a above 500 season, but now you
Mm-hmm.
you won 2 playoff games. So I hope Mike Evans stays because I'd love to see him retire as a Tampa Bay Buccaneer for life. He had a great game as well. It's just it's the way it goes with Baker Mayfield. You're gonna get good Baker, you're gonna get crazy Baker, but he's
Yeah.
entertaining football. He's a gunslinger, and it's just one of those things where even Baker knows, like, man, I shouldn't have done that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is what it is. They got a bright future. They have a lot of defensive free agents coming up, so we'll see what they do defensively in the offseason.
Yeah. I mean, to wrap up the Lions, I'll say, uh, I think the Lions are in the hunt, honestly, for the next few seasons. The offensive core they have is so young. If you look at their draft, right, just Jameer Gibbs, Sam Laporta. I mean, Jared Goff is still on a very friendly contract.
Mm-hmm.
Amon-Ra St. Brown, I believe, has one more season left, right? So you have all these guys. Jameson Williams is still on a rookie contract. Like you have a lot of room to play with that offense. And it's really just been the defense that's been. It's the same story, right, as the Texans, right? But I think draft wise, they've just absolutely killed it, and I expect them to do the same in this upcoming draft. So I'm just going to throw it out here for next season. I think the Lions once again are going to be, at least for the next few seasons, a playoff worthy contention team. It'll be fun to see them match up with Green Bay on a yearly scale now.
Yeah. Well, on the flip side, they have Hutch, who's also on a team-friendly deal right now, rookie deal. And then what they did was really smart. They did put some money into their secondary, signed Cam Sutton, signed Gardner Johnson, and so they have a great GM. Oh my God, his mind just slipped my head. I saw the video of him in the elevator. I forgot his name.
I
But they
forget
have
his
a
name.
great, yeah, they have a great GM there in Detroit. He does a phenomenal job of using his salary cap space very wisely and also just scouting and drafting very, very well.
Mm-hmm.
Let's not forget they didn't sign Swift. They traded him to be able to get Gibbs and just hitting the bank on Laporta and
Yep.
Hutch and a lot of guys. Brian Branch is another good rookie that they drafted.
Yep. Jack Campbell, middle linebacker.
Yeah.
A lot of talent across the board for Detroit. So, I mean, the fact that they're in the NFC Championship game,
Goes to show.
It goes to show that, but also goes to show that Detroit may be a contender for the next few seasons, and don't. This season may be a shocker to everyone, but next season should be almost an expectation, in my belief.
Yeah, this was the eye opener for all Lions haters. But we'll move it on. There was a game at night that was the most anxiety-driven game I've ever watched.
Oh God.
Yes.
Yes, it was.
Mm-hmm.
Chiefs, Bills. Chiefs coming away 27-24. A game played in Buffalo. Great environment. Once again, got this storyline of their fans clearing out the stadium from snow. Buffalo just being Buffalo, fan base wise, but back and forth. That's probably the best way to describe this game. Could have gone any which way, but unfortunately, ended with the Chiefs win due to a missed field goal by Tyler Bass, a chip shot field goal, I should say. Wide right, yeah, and they even knew. I mean, they even talked about that end of the field having a good gust. So they knew it was happening. It's not like it caught them off guard, but dude, this game had everything. It literally had everything, right? You had Patrick Mahomes having a Patrick Mahomes type game, Josh Allen having the craziness of Josh Allen, doing everything that he can to keep his team relevant. Hence why they're the best third down team in the league, as said multiple times. By Tony Romo. But overall, it's just heartbreaker for the Bills, right? It's just they, for some reason, in the playoffs, cannot figure out a way to get past the Chiefs team. And I know it was mentioned in the podcast or on the broadcast that this was the season, right? This is the season that the Chiefs were on the down low. I don't necessarily agree with that statement. Was this the weakest team we've seen the Chiefs go up against the Bills with? Of course. But in no which way does that mean like it was going to be a surefire win, right? Like Buffalo, honestly, 3 possessions in a row in the fourth quarter, just weren't able to put points on the board. That's the difference. They had 3 shots, right? And their defense stepped up. They had a fumble in the back of the end zone, which, I mean, if they would have scored there, that would have been it. But they had all the chances in the world to end this game. Josh Allen missing Stephon Diggs over the middle. On that last drive, that could have swung the game in any which way. But I don't know what it is, man. Well, the problem is when Buffalo becomes one dimensional, which they are sometimes. When you go up against Steve Spagnuolo, he's going to figure it out. 2-3 quarters in, you can do whatever you want. But I mean, you give him that much time to scheme up something, and you don't have a lead against the Chiefs. You're not gonna win that game, and I know it's probably frustrating. I'll admit, I feel like the Chiefs are the new Patriots, right? Like, do I have anything against the Chiefs? Well, actually, I do. Yeah, fuck them. I'm a Bengals fan, but it's just kind of like everyone's kind of tired of seeing them be successful, and you just kind of want to see that new blood kind of come through. Yeah. But once again, Andy Reid does what Andy Reid does best. And they figured out how to win. And I talked about it on the podcast last week, right? We talked about what the game difference was going to be, and I said it comes down to tight ends. Which one, who's going to have a better game? And 2 touchdowns by Travis Kelce was a difference in this game. Just, I don't know. I have like 2 more gripes for this game.
Go ahead.
Okay, so as you guys all know, I'm a big Taylor Swift fan. There's no hiding that. Okay,
we're going there. Okay.
Yes, and the first few games, it's cute, it's fun, right? And then I'll even admit, toward the end of the season, it started just getting annoying that it kept on going that way. And my big gripe is this whole Taylor Swift and then the whole Kelce family being just pushed by the league on all of us, right? Constantly. And it's just it gets to a point where it's like, I mean, focus on the football, man. Focus on, we have a legendary game in front of us, right? Like, why does that have to be? I mean, after the game, I'm on TikTok, right? So I'm swiping through. Usually I'll see, recaps of the games, people just highlighting plays. But majority of my TikToks are literally freaking Jason Kelce with his t-shirt off. So my issue with that is this no longer becomes, this is the NFL following them, they're being annoying. It's the Kelce's know what they're doing, man. Jason Kelce knows exactly what he was doing in that situation. Yeah. So it's almost becoming like you guys are making it bigger than the game itself. And I know this has nothing to do with the game, but it's just you can kind of see how TV shifts over time, right? And I hate when things start becoming more quote unquote scripted. This is not, I'm not saying the game was scripted, but it's kind of like a narrative is pushed on you when you just want to, like, I just want to watch fucking football, dude. That's it. I just want to focus on football. So shit like that, just it's starting to get to a point where it's just, are we focused on football? Or are we focused on celebrity status?
Yeah, I had said this to you guys a long time ago. So, I had said that, there feels like an agenda with the Kelsey brothers, and I got pushback saying like, oh, their podcast took off, which I don't deny. Their podcast took off. Their personalities started to show outside of the field. But yeah, my gripes on this. How you feel now is how I felt all season, but I just now just mentally just know that this is what it is. Again, NFL loves marketing. It loves being able to milk out money however way possible. So if this is the way to do it, this is the way to do it. I just I no, I first want to say no hate towards the Kelsey brothers. They're great players. They're fun personalities. Yeah, it's fun seeing Jason Kelsey like that, being shirtless and celebrating as a brother. I think all of that's cool. It's just kind of annoying where there's like so many other families and brothers, if you want to get involved in that, or other stories that with these players that are even star players that you don't really get to see, right? So that's the kind of annoying part with it. On top of that, again, you know my sentiment towards the whole Taylor Swift thing and the media coverage, and there's a reason why. Okay, there's a reason why it's being pushed so much, even more, right? So everyone had the gripe with Peacock and having to download that Peacock app to be able to watch the Chiefs and Dolphins game, right?
Yep.
But the NFL and Peacock did it so strategically because not only is it the Chiefs, they know that the Taylor Swift fans are going to want to watch, and they know that the men that watch football are going to want to watch. So that app's going to get downloaded regardless on top of that. So it's boom, money and user downloads there. Then the whole time leading up to the game and during the game, do you remember the advertisement you saw for Peacock?
No, I was probably stepped away or something.
Oppenheimer would be on Peacock to view 1 week after that game. Guess who decided to go watch Barbie instead of Oppenheimer? All your Taylor Swift fans. So then how do you get those users to hold on to the app for one more week? You put Oppenheimer on there. It's just I know I sound like some crazy person saying like, oh, you're just thinking too far ahead. No, it's like strategically done to be able to get user base. And there's a reason why Peacock was the #1 downloaded app for that week and like broke the Apple and Android downloads. So
yeah. Anyways, so going back to the game.
Yes,
going back to the game. A big question is now coming. Where do the Bills stand? Right. What's the next steps? Is their window done? What's going to happen with Stephon Diggs? Is he going to stay? Is he not going to stay? I mean, what's going to happen to the Bills? Right. That's my big question. The Chiefs are the Chiefs, man. I'm not, as long as Patrick Mahomes is there, they're always going to have a chance. There's no denying. Hence why he was paid the largest contract a few years ago, because that's what he does.
Yeah.
Now with the Bills, I don't know. Sometimes when you lose in a fashion like you did tonight, that can carry over. I mean, we saw what the fuck happened to the Eagles, right? All of a sudden, losing starts stinging a little bit more. I actually think that I always mess up his name. It's Joe Brady.
Joe Brady. Yes, Joe Brady, not Bill O'Brien.
Yeah, I think he actually had a really good game plan, but when you can't go vertical, that makes things very difficult. But they figured out that, right? At least their offensive play calling is a lot better than where it was beginning of the season. Yeah. But I have a feeling that this loss is going to carry over into next season.
Yeah. The Bills are in a very bad situation in terms of players that are going to become free agents. A lot of their defense is going to become free agents. A lot of them. And Josh Allen got his contract. Diggs is up for his, I think, has 1 year left or whatever. So there's a lot of question marks, and kind of the the tone for the Bills all season long was you got to win it or you're going home. The urgency was there, not only just to get into the playoffs, but I think overall the urgency was felt because a lot of these guys knew like this is the last season we're all going to be together. I'm not saying the Bills should completely blow it up. Hopefully they re-sign some of those core guys, even if that's Diggs. But there's a lot of question marks in terms of offensively and defensively for this Bills future outside of quarterback and running back. They got and tight end. But they got some question marks, especially on the defensive side, which that's McDermott's play calling side, and that's his wheelhouse. So we'll see what he does in the offseason and how he drafts and who they sign to determine how the Bills feel going into next year. This one's a heartbreaker. This one is this could be just shattering of this entire team, and it goes into downfall there, and they're just going to be struggling the rest of the time, or they bring in another person or a few other people and be able to churn out and get back to the situation again.
Yeah.
Quickly for the Chiefs, it's cliche. The Chiefs are the Chiefs. I think me and you at least give a lot of credit to that Spagnuolo defense, and that caused a lot of havoc for Josh Allen. Even on that play where he missed Diggs down the middle, the reason that throw was so off is because Chris Jones was able to get pressure and push. I believe it was Chris Jones, but the offensive lineman got pushed into Josh Allen, hindering his accuracy and power on that throw. So it's kudos to Spags defense. Those guys, at the end of the day, they get the job done, and they're really, it shows that hard-nosed AFC style football. For the offense, it's Patrick Mahomes, and when Kelsey gets going, then you got real big issues because Kelsey gets going, Rashee Rice will start to get going, or somebody else will start to get going. I think the biggest thing was, you mentioned the deep ball. Josh Allen did not hit those deep balls. And then when MVS is getting them and catching those deep balls, it goes to show how effective that Kansas City offense is and kind of how reliable it is on those deep balls that we've seen all season long. MVS either dropping them or there's just miscues. But when you're hitting them in the playoffs, it's just a bigger dagger being chunked into that defense.
Yeah.
And then just a little tidbit, sorry. Tyler Bass on the right hash is 75% for the season. On the left hash, he's like 85 or 89 plus %. It just was a shitty situation that the ball had to be on the right hash.
Yeah. I know a lot of hate's gonna go his way, but I like to look at games honestly as a whole. I know scapegoating the kicker is always a generic go-to for everyone, but I attribute it to honestly those 3 possessions they had at the end of the game, not being able to put up a single point.
Diggs dropped the ball. That could have been a big game changer too. That could have been that one play that you needed to go down the field to complete. You couldn't get one. So you could, like you said, you can blame a lot of different things. And we get annoyed when people blame one single thing. It's like, no, there's a lot that goes into play for that last situation to happen.
Yeah, that's just, unfortunately, it is a game that almost felt like the Bills were just happy to be around, which we saw for 3 quarters, and then all of a sudden they're not. That fight they had to get in the playoffs, we talked about, going from a position of being desperate to being determined. 3 quarters, they were desperate.
Yeah.
4th quarter, that desperation, it didn't carry through.
It turned into panic.
And I mean, also, sorry, we completely forgetting going for it on 4th down. Fake punt, man. Punt. This is like, I get why they did it. There's 10 guys on the field, so it was actually, it made sense. But in a situation like that, if it wasn't for a fumble in the end zone, it was done right then and there, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah. Question for you as we wrap up this game: Mahomes wins an away playoff game for the first time. And it's not just any away playoff game. It's beating your conference rival, Buffalo Bills, who you've met many times in the AFC Championship game.
Mm-hmm.
Does this, I personally think it does, but this just kind of, the stone was already etched, but now you're like kind of finalizing it for him to be the GOAT or a GOAT along with Brady and Manning?
Um, ugh. Goat. Goat is such a difficult conversation
Okay, let me throw
to
this
have
hypothetical.
right now.
Let me throw this hypothetical then. He beats Buffalo, but then beats Baltimore in Baltimore and then wins the Super Bowl.
Mhm. Yeah,
That
if
yeah,
he's able to do that with the team that he has right now, right? Before all of his Super Bowls have been honestly they had he's had a great offense around him, right? And not saying that he's not good, Mahomes, but yeah, in a season like this, going back to back playoff games on the road in two very difficult environments, and then going and winning the Super Bowl, uh, yeah, that starts putting Mahomes into a conversation, right?
yeah,
Because now we've seen Mahomes win as he should, and now we're seeing him win on the road. He's doing all the things that people sat there and said, "Well, let's wait till this happens." Well, things are happening now.
yeah.
Granted, I think he probably needs another season or so where that's continued, right?
Mhm.
But I don't think anyone can sit there and disagree with the career that Patrick has had so far. If he continues on this trajectory, that he wouldn't be considered up there.
I agree. Yeah. I mean, obviously, getting 7 championships is going to be tough,
Yeah.
but if he
The only
gets up
thing I
there,
will say is I just don't think that he'll be able to surpass Brady unless he gets like 8 Super Bowls. In the sense that let's all remember Brady was not a first round draft pick.
yeah,
And when you look at his athletic ability, it's nowhere near Patrick's. Brady was honestly just a straight up field general, right? He had no legs on him. So everything was just, his arm. But Mahomes puts himself in the conversation because now we're sitting there talking about, all right, if we're going to talk about a complete quarterback, Mahomes takes the cake because he's doing stuff that, Manning and Tom Brady couldn't do, which
yeah,
is win games with their legs as well as their arm.
yeah, yeah.
So,
Yeah, that's very, very true. We never seen a guy like Mahomes outside of Joe Montana play like this, where it's like, hey, on the run I can do it with my legs, on the scramble I can do it and make these crazy throws, sidearms and stuff. So um, it was something I thought about as the game ended. I was like, well, the biggest knock so far from Mahomes was, oh, he's never played away playoff game and he's never won one. Well, it's like, well, like you said, he ticked that box. He does a few more. He's got a big argument.
yeah, no, I don't disagree with you on that. So we'll see. Well, still a lot of football left for him to be able to prove that. So
Yes,
talking about a lot
sir.
of football left, we'll just jump right into next week's matchups. Um, I guess we can start off with the NFC, right? Have the 49ers hosting the Detroit Lions. And I'm sorry, give me 1 second.
Yeah, you're good.
Sorry, my AirPods died on me.
You're
Um,
good.
but okay,
Ooh.
so Detroit heading over to the 49ers. Uh, it just I don't know why it doesn't sound as I mean I know why it doesn't sound as exciting as the Ravens and then the Chiefs, but uh, we have two teams that we haven't seen in the Super Bowl in a very long time. I mean, definitely the Lions haven't seen the Super Bowl in a very long time or ever. So how do you see this one going?
Man, this is interesting because it's so it's a powerhouse defense team with a very good offense, the Niners, versus a powerhouse offense team with a good defense in the Lions, right? So this goes back to when we talked about the Lions game earlier. The Lions offensively can give you a run for their money. And if anything has shown in these last few weeks against the Niners, is that you can put up points. The Packers were able to put up points against the Niners, right? So and
Mm-hmm.
other teams in the season were able to put up points against the Niners. So with the good offensive scheme and the right weapons, which the Lions have, they can give the Niners defense a run for their money. It comes down to who makes the play on the other side of the ball, in my opinion, for the Lions. If the Lions defensively can get an interception on Purdy or get pressure, get the ball and get some turnovers, they will be put in a better position to win. Um, I favor the Niners because they're the more complete team, and so I'm gonna pick the Niners to win against the Lions. But I got this small glimmer of, man, the Lions offense they can do something, and if one guy or two guys on defense just make a play, it could put the Niners behind the eight ball, or behind the sticks, or whatever the saying is. And I think the Lions could eke out a win, but it's a lot of ifs and ands, and I don't have that many ifs and ands for the Niners.
Okay. I think mentally, right, my mind's saying 49ers, right? Heart wise,
Yeah, yeah,
it's going to be with the
yeah,
Lions. I
yeah,
think pretty much everyone that's not a 49ers fan will probably agree with that sentiment.
yeah.
But I don't know. I think this game right now, right, out of all the games he's ever coached, Ben Johnson's going to have to put together the best game plan he's ever had to create. Because you're going to have to do some things creatively. And the reason I say that is for the Lions to win this game, they need to jump ahead early, right? Going into the fourth quarter, they have to have a lead. If you're letting the 49ers stick around, even if it's a 7-point lead, I don't think that's good enough against the 49ers.
Yeah.
Because the 49ers are a team that wears you down throughout the game with Christian
Mm-hmm.
McCaffrey running the ball. Fourth quarter, for some reason, he just finds a hole every single time, right? So if the Lions are down, or if it's even close in the fourth quarter, I think that heavily leans toward the 49ers compared to the Lions.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the nice thing that's also been frustrating for us for the Lions is these close games they have. I think playoff wise, this is where all that experience comes to play, right? Is you are a team that is used to being in these close matchups, so you don't fret away from it, right? You don't sit there going down by 7, all of a sudden start panicking, or you don't sit there and you lose a lead and all of a sudden it's like, oh shit, we can't figure it out. The Lions have done this before, which is great for a team that's brand new to the playoffs. That is vital, like, experience to have.
Yeah.
Um, but they're going up against a very, very good 49ers defense. So Ben Johnson's gonna have to call the game of his life. For the Detroit defense, you have to be relentless, right? Aiden Hutchinson will also have to be a person that has a game of his life. And I'm not sitting there saying he has to get sacks left and right. It's you have to hold that edge against Christian McCaffrey. Do not let him get that hole on the outside. Um, Same thing for their secondary. It's you're gonna have the 49ers make plays. It's just who they are. They're very efficient, right? But if you can
Yeah.
limit that deep ball, you can limit the big play the 49ers have, you have a chance in this game. The game's in San Francisco, and unfortunately, San Francisco is not like the other teams in California where they give away home field advantage. They'll hold a home field advantage. It's going to be a rowdy environment, but this game just comes down to, honestly, is just mental toughness. Which team is mentally more focused? Who's not going to have the turnovers? Jared Goff is going to have to play mistake-free football.
Yeah.
And honestly, just I think the beauty of Jared Goff compared to a lot of other QBs in the league is he actually doesn't go out of his way to win games, right? Like, he's not going to put everything on his shoulders and throw a inherent pass, right? He's going to be efficient. But when you have a QB that's efficient, that means you have to be on schedule, right? So if they're behind the sticks at all in this game, it's not going to be good for them. For the 49ers, it's playing up to your ability. And you're playing against a Lions team that you should statistically beat. It's just, are you going to live up to the moment, which they've struggled, right? And these championship games is they get matched up against a team that has heart, that has talent, and they just can't execute. So
Yeah, I think for me, one last thing, the key for the Lions, the key for the Lions is they have the ability to win the run game. And the Packers actually won the run game against the Lions. That's why, or against the Niners. That's why they were in that game. And the Lions have a very, very good run game with Gibbs and Montgomery, and they have the ability to win the run game and win the clock as well. So the more you can keep the ball away from that Niners offense and keep your defense off the field and fresh, the better I think the Lions have an opportunity to win. I think, in my opinion, it's going to be that run game. And if the Lions can win that run game, which obviously is going to create those pockets in the play action for Laporta and Amon-Ra St. Brown, if that's possible, then yeah, the Lions can do it. But
Yeah.
It's going to be tough. It's cool to see though. We talk about these teams and their offenses. They're loaded on. They have a stud on each level, right? Quarterback will include Purdy as well, right? You got Debo and Ayuk. You got Amon Ra and Jameson Williams. You got Kittle. You got Laporta. You got McCaffrey. You got Montgomery and Gibbs. So like it's kind of cool that these offenses that we're seeing that they're powerhouse offenses is because they have a guy on each level of the field. That's why they're in this NFC Championship game.
Freaking, you're right. Panay Sewell, Trent Williams, like across the board, like if you match them up, it's like, oh, you guys have similar guys just in different points of their career. It's kind of like seeing like the old guard, right, versus the new guard. It's all right, who can execute better? Unfortunately, from my experience, it always ends up going to experience. So, like I said, my heart's for the Lions. I want them to make it there. But
yeah, I agree.
The 49ers have had enough heartbreak where I don't see them being not well prepared mentally for this game. I think they're going to come in with a chip on their shoulder and a lot to prove, especially after this Packers game, right? Everyone's talking shit about how they're not as elite as they think they are, and take that shit into the locker room, man. Take that to heart. See what happens.
Yep.
All right. So moving on to the AFC Championship game, we have Kansas City Chiefs heading off to their second road game in the Patrick Mahomes era to a very, very difficult environment in the Baltimore Ravens.
Man, this is like how I felt about Buffalo and Kansas City. I can't decide. Kansas City's winning games, so it's not like a clear cut pick Baltimore. I want Baltimore to win, and I have no hate toward Kansas City. I have no hate towards Patrick Mahomes. I've just loved the season that Lamar has had, and I'd like to see it all come together for Lamar. It's going to be interesting to see how Spagnuolo's defense against Lamar in that run game hold up. Buffalo against that run defense of Kansas City was doing well in the first half, but the second half it started to slow down. So we'll see how do they guard Lamar Jackson compared to Josh Allen? How do they handle the backs of Gus Edwards and James Cook? And then Zay Flowers, he's a very shifty back or running wide receiver. And so we'll see how Todd Monken uses Zay Flowers. The plus for Baltimore is, and I'm not 100% sure, but if they do get Mark Andrews back, that is a big game changer for Baltimore. And just the confidence that Mark Andrews brings to everybody else on the field, even to Lamar. And then you obviously have Likely. That, in my opinion, tips towards Baltimore. And that's where Spags is going to struggle especially if Mark Andrews comes back, because you know how I feel about Baltimore defense and especially those linebackers. Mahomes is not going to be able to run around and dance and scramble as much when you have Patrick Queen and Roquan Smith spying you. And then Kyle Hamilton as a ball hawk out there as safety. So I think it's going to be a little bit more difficult for Mahomes to move the ball offensively against this Ravens defense.
Yeah, I mean, Buffalo's defense was good, but the Ravens defense is elite, right?
Yeah.
Buffalo's defense, for anyone that hasn't watched them all season, is probably the fastest defense in the NFL across the board. They are fast and they are hard hitting, even across the board. I mean, you have Kyle Hamilton that flies in from a safety position consistently to break up screens, right?
Yeah.
And honestly, it's not like he's just tackling dudes; he's laying dudes out. So that's going to be a great matchup. Andy Reid versus Mike McDonald. I mean, we all know that McDonald's being looked at heavily across the league as far as a head coach opportunity. But I think in this game, my hat tips toward Baltimore. It's offensively, no one, any defensive coordinator has not figured them out all season, right? As many games as I've watched, like eventually you start watching teams like, all right, cool, like you can kind of figure out their tendencies. I can't figure out what Baltimore's is, and the reason why, it's Lamar Jackson. When he takes off, there's no way to game plan that, right? And so, I mean, and he does it very effectively too, right? They'll overload one side and they'll pretty much keep him on a one-on-one matchup with someone on the outside.
Yeah.
So what it comes down to, honestly, is tackling, right? It's can you tackle? I mean, I'm not even talking about just Lamar Jackson. Can you tackle Zay Flowers when he's out? Can you tackle Gus Edwards in the goal line?
Hmm.
That's what they do very, very well. Is they throw a lot of looks at you. They're very run heavy, right? But it's something where, like in the Remember Titans, he's like, yeah, I run 5 plays. It's like Novocaine. It eventually works. It's the same thing for the Ravens. I'm not saying they run 5 plays, but they don't hide what they do running wise.
Yeah.
Um, it's just, can you consistently stop it? And I think the key is going to be, everyone says it, and it's harder to do than actually say, is you got to make Lamar throw the ball, right? You're going to have to throw a shit ton of blitzes his way, because worst case scenario, he throws the ball and they do well in the air, which he hasn't proven he can do consistently all season long.
Hmm.
Um, you just don't want him to take off. You don't want to sit there, and what happens with the Ravens, as much as I've watched them, is for a quarter or two you can stick around. You got a good game plan where you're confusing him a little bit, but then it wears off in that fourth quarter, because all of a sudden you're so worried about him taking off that you have a linebacker or a cornerback that all of a sudden forgets his assignment, comes to go and tackle him, and then he'll make a crazy play. He's not Mahomes where he's going to have ridiculous throws, but he knows how to get the ball to his guys, and it's not like there's throwing it deep. And I think you're completely correct about Andrews coming back. If they have Mark Andrews coming back, that opens up 2 tight end sets.
Hmm.
So if you think you can stop the run game there, cool. What happens with the play action? You got
Yeah.
guys that can block, and you got guys that can catch with Likely and Andrews. So um, I like the Ravens here. Kansas City has just been one of those teams that they've skated by all season long, and we've seen this in the playoffs, is these teams that we keep seeing that have skated by all season long finally meeting up a opponent that is not going to let that happen. I think that's the Ravens. I think the Ravens handily are the best team in the league right now, probably the Super Bowl favorite, and realistically.
Yeah.
So, and then on top of that, it's a road game, man. It's just a way. It's a rowdy environment, um, and it's AFC North football. And I will say the Kansas City Chiefs are not hard hitting too, right? And we've talked about earlier with
Oh yeah.
the AFC City having a lot more intensity, but uh, Baltimore's done this for a very long time. Their whole staple has been, we are a hard nosed team, and every single yard you get from us is going to have to be earned and not given. So, um, yeah, long winded for me too, but I just see Baltimore winning this one.
Yeah, I think the other thing is Kansas City is coming off a very difficult game, a very hard hitting, exhausting game, whereas Baltimore took care of business and was able to kind of mentally and physically rest a little longer. So I think that's going to play an issue on top of the crowd noise, the stadium, all of that stuff. And it really is going to come down to for the Chiefs, it's Magic Mahomes. That's the only X factor at the end of the day that you can think about for the Chiefs. Like, you can defensively, you can say Chris Jones and L'Jarius Sneed and like all these guys, right? But
Yeah,
at the end of the day, it's going to come down to, can Mahomes put up points against that Ravens defense?
yeah,
And that will be the end all be all for me. For Lamar, uh, the gravity that he pulls whenever he has the ball, just the eyes that go on him, and so it just gives so much flexibility for a guy like Todd Monken to run so many different types of plays, whether it's RPOs, play actions, whatever it may be. So I think Spags is going to have a handful, and when he does blitz, I have a gut feeling Lamar is going to hit those throws. He's seen it enough now to where I think he's going to hit those throws on the blitz.
yeah. And honestly, another factor is, if it's a close game, I'm never going to bet against Justin Tucker kicking a field goal. Like, that's almost automatic, right?
Yeah.
So that is a luxury to have in a league where we've seen a lot of missed field goals in this playoff. So,
Oh yeah.
yeah, Baltimore for me. But either way, both matchups. I mean, it's conference championship week, man. It doesn't get any better than this.
It's great.
Um,
I,
so
as fans, I'll say this. I think as fans, both of us want a Lions Ravens Super Bowl.
yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think just pure NFL fans would love a Lions Ravens Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. One thing NFL wise, why the fuck wouldn't you make both games primetime games? Like night games, like one on Saturday, one on Sunday? Just my
Uh
2 cents. If they're both championship games, why not have both primetime?
I don't know. That is a good question. Maybe it's just trying to give equal amount of rest days. I don't know.
Yeah, for a
Or
league that cares about marketing and dollars, I don't think they give two fucks about rest days.
well, I guess they capitalize on that one day, right? So it's they get football all day. I don't know. The timings is what makes me mad. It's 2:00 and 5:30 for us in Central Time. I hate that.
Yeah, don't get it.
Yeah,
No.
I don't get it either. But it is what it is. So we got the Chiefs and the Ravens in the AFC Championship and the Lions and the 49ers in the NFC Championship. Championship weekend is set. This has been the Talker Game Podcast. I'm Shahan. That's Gif. We'll see you guys later.